Please welcome to the stage real estate developer, Princeton professor, and MacArthur Genius Award recipient, Majora Carter, with Randal Wyatt of Taking Ownership PDX and the citizens Roxanne, Patel, Shepelavy.
I really am enjoying the jaunty music that they play when we come out.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
So we're going to talk about something that I think all of us can kind of relate to, which has to do with housing and the beautiful privileges of owning property. So you both work at real estate, coming at it in a way that is a little bit different from the regular story of real estate development and real estate in America. And the aim for both of you is similar: to build Black wealth, maintain Black and brown communities, create neighborhood where the existing residents can and want to stay, and where they can thrive and pass on wealth to their children. Which speaks to a salient fact of American life. Home ownership is still the best way to build generational wealth in America. According to a survey by the National Association of Realtors, homeowners became 40 times richer than renters in the last decade. And it is maybe the most stark example of the wealth gap. In 2021, about 73% of white households in America own their homes, compared to just 44% of Black households. There are a lot of reasons for that, including racist practices like redlining, which Priscilla talked about earlier, lower wages, educational attainment, and gentrification, particularly in cities like Portland and New York, where both of you do most of your work. Meanwhile, it's true almost everywhere that the most affordable house is the one you're already in, especially for residents who've owned their house for decades. And it is also true, as Majora and Randal have shown, that it is possible to fight the effects of gentrification by helping longtime residents stay where they are. So Majora, I want to start with you. The name of your book is, which is for sale at the bookstore here, is Reclaiming Community. You don't have to move out of your neighborhood to live in a better one, which is kind of like a mission statement for what you do at your Majora Carter group. Mm-hmm. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Sure. When you think, I'm sort of struck by the stat that you gave about 40% of homeowners got 40% more wealthy while
they're 40 times richer.
Richer, yeah.
It's crazy.
Richer. It struck me as incredibly sad because during much of that happened as a result of Black wealth. It's after the foreclosure crisis and everything else. We have lost so much wealth, thanks to predatory speculation, private equity, real estate developers who actually buy the properties, and we see wealth being lost in our communities and folks becoming more landless, transient renters. And so what we do as part of reclaiming our community is first of all, like helping folks understand the value of our own communities and hold on to that wealth if we have it. And also not just reclaim either the land itself, but also just the fact that our communities have value in them because we are there. So reclaiming it emotionally as a place that brings us value, but that we can also bring value to by us being there is literally what reclaiming our community means.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. And so, so Randal, you do some of this work in Portland, and tell us what you do with Taking Ownership PDX and kind of what that's all about.
Yeah, so Taking Ownership is a reparations and community-based organization that raises money predominantly from the community, from affluent allies, and we use that money to hire contractors and vendors to provide free repairs and renovations for Black homeowners, as well as financial assistance for Black small businesses. And we also have a volunteer program where allies can come out and put in some sweat equity and do basic landscaping, cleanup jobs, decluttering, because Portland's such a white city that white people can go weeks without ever having any meaningful interactions with Black people. So this is a chance for them to actually, even if they live amongst them, so this is a chance for them to actually humanize the Black community. And we do this work to deflect the gentrification process, to deter predatory real estate professionals and developers, to keep the city off their back. An Ombudsman report found that the Bureau of Development Services has disproportionately put property maintenance, complaint-based liens and fines on Black and brown-owned homes in gentrifying areas. And this is because affluent white people are moving into these communities that make significantly more money than them, and they're complaining about their Black and brown neighbors' aesthetics of their homes. And this is contributing to the financial instability and vulnerability that, of our Black homeowners in our community. And also is to, most importantly, to create healthier homes for our Black homeowners and small business owners, to give them access to renewable energy resources, because we all know climate change is going to impact marginalized communities the worst and first. And most importantly, also keep them in their homes so they can build generational wealth.
So, and you started taking ownership during the 2020 protests, and I think what you had explained to me was that you had intended it to be a volunteer organization,
Yes.
and then you started realizing that people wanted to contribute, which is a little bit of a story of Portland, right? Which is
I had somebody reach out and say, I don't know how to do any kind of landscaping or anything. Here's $100 and find the person that can do it. And that's when it hit me, because I don't really think capitalism much. And I was like, oh yeah, money. That's right, we can do that. But I founded it because the federal government is nowhere near providing reparations for the Black community. I mean, they're not even trying to acknowledge our atrocious history. They're trying to get rid of critical race theory. So they don't even want to talk about it. So I felt like, why not create a platform where people who do believe in reparations, allies that want to contribute to this, can do that in the form of either volunteering or financial donations. And then I chose Black homeowners as and small business owners as my population to serve.
And actually, capitalism is a good place to jump back to you, Majora.
Okay.
In the sense of, you talk
I
about
embrace my inner capitalist, and my libertarian, and my socialist. It's okay. I'll take them all.
all of it.
Yeah.
Well, in the sense that the work that you do, you talk a lot about that it's not just enough to have social services in neighborhoods and to provide people with the affordable housing and the community centers and the things that people think their neighborhoods need. But really, you talk about talent retention.
Yes.
What is it that you need to do to keep people in a neighborhood?
Yeah, so talent retention, I'm sure everybody's familiar with it. It's business strategy. Employers will pump training and supports into the folks that work with them so that they lean into the work of the organization. So ultimately, business does well, the people do well. And besides which, if you're an employer, you don't want your people to go and start working for somebody else, number one. But in the communities, in low status communities, like whether they're Native American reservations or inner cities like mine, even poor white communities where there was business but it's long gone and people are still in the same kind of boat, there's this assumption that you measure success by how far you get away from these communities, and billions of dollars of philanthropic government spending is pumped into these communities, yet the social outcomes, health, education, police brutality, these things don't change. And so we actually have in those communities, I think, a talent repulsion strategy where it's not like amazing people weren't born and raised in there that are athletically or artistically or academically and just brilliant. What we do have a problem with is keeping them there. And because we're taught to measure success by how far we get away from our communities. It's a well-oiled machine. It's like we literally, look at the bright kids, coming from our communities and go, you need to go and try to get yourself into a community that probably doesn't even want you there in the first place. Okay? So, and I was one of those kids. I was reading well before I was 3. And so it's kind of like, yeah, I knew everyone was going to grow up and be somebody. But why do we have to take our talents and go and enrich someone else's neighborhood? Why are we led to believe that somehow our communities have no real value until somebody comes from the outside and goes, oh, we see, they're close to cities, close to transportation. This could be turned into the kind of community that will actually make it nicer for people that are moving in. And so instead, we're like, we've used talent retention as a strategy because we know people leave our communities in order to find the things that that are not readily available in our places. Look, we've got the health clinics, we've got the quote unquote affordable housing for the lowest income bands. We've got, 99-cent stores. We've got the kind of things that people don't want to stay. People leave the neighborhood to go to the cafes, to go to the bars, to go to the restaurants, to go to bookstores. That's what we try to build, and that's what we call the talent retention strategy, because that also gives people, especially those whose family do have property in those communities and who would often sell grandma's house because they don't feel like it's worth it for them to stay in those neighborhoods. All of that, like encouraging people to, like, number one, have a place to build community within their own neighborhoods at those kind of like third spaces that are neither work nor home, but help you build community because you see people around you. And then also see value in keeping the house that you might have been born and raised in. And I could say this with actual pain, because my father bought our house that I grew up in the late 1940s when the neighborhood was mostly white. By the time both my parents passed in the early 2000s, I could not get my siblings to hold on to that house because it was cute that I did the community thing. I'm the youngest of 10, so people like to talk to me like that. But then they were just like, and now, the house sold for like next to nothing, and it's now worth at least 3 times, what we sold it for. And here, so things we don't talk about at family dinners. I'm just saying. But to see that our land literally going away in a way that doesn't support generational wealth for my family, for families like it, that's why we're working on creating a talent retention approach to community development that puts the people in our communities first.
Yeah. So Randal, Portland is a very different city from Philadelphia and from New York. In part, you mentioned that you can go a long time without seeing any people of color in Portland, or at least any black people in Portland. Mm-hmm. But one of the interesting things about Portland is it's both incredibly white and incredibly progressive.
Yeah.
And so you were able to kind of bring these two things together. So you not only in the sense of the sort of capitalizing on what Portland is known as the most gentrified city in America. So that is the thing that you were able to kind of capitalize on a little bit. And so in addition to taking ownership, you also have the Housing Solidarity Project. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what that is and sort of how you benefited from that?
Yeah.
This is very cool.
So cool.
So a couple months after I founded Taking Ownership PDX, I got this email from this woman named Annie, and it said, I want transferring home to black ownership. And she had a home in a area that was redlined called the Albina neighborhood. It used to be where only black people could buy. And she wanted to transfer it to home ownership. And I read the email and I ignored it because I was like, there's no way she's really trying to do this thing. I was like, this is not a real thing, come on. And then she reached out a week later and was like, no, I'm serious, I want to do this. And so I got on a call with her, and she was, and at the time I was renting a crummy, mice-infested apartment. And so I was like, well, me and my kids, we could really, use a home, and I'd love to be a homeowner. I had aspired to be one a few years prior, but didn't have the income to do it. And she was serious about it. 4 months later, she sold me the house for what was left on the mortgage. It's a beautiful home. She sold it for about $230,000, and it's worth about $900,000. So she gifted me quite a bit of equity, changing me and my son's lives.
Yes.
And we decided, we want to inspire. She was from a group called Resource Generation, a bunch of allies that do really radical reparations work. But we wanted to inspire more people to do housing-related reparations. So we've decided to form this it's a collective of volunteers. It's not even an organization because we don't want to mess with all the red tape and everything. But it's, we decided to form this, and we have now a listserv of about 160 affluent people who donate money to Black and Indigenous families to help them put down payments on homes in Portland and in the Oregon area.
And you help them with clearing their debt and all the stuff.
We call it mortgage readiness. We help them clear their debt, get their credit score to a reasonable place. So the last thing we want to do is get them house poor, get them in a house and they can't afford the payments, things like that. So we make sure they're ready for the home that they're going to be purchasing.
That's amazing. Majora, one of the things that in your book you talk about that I have now repeated to many people because I think it's really interesting is that you said you did a survey of residents about what the neighborhood needed, and what they needed were, I think I mentioned in the beginning, people said we really need affordable housing, and we really need community centers, and we need public health clinics, and then you went back and you said, great, so if we have all those, will you stay in the neighborhood? And people were like, no, I want coffee shops and bookstores and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And yet, tell us about the Majora Carter fan club.
Okay, so I refer to, so the Majora Carter fan club, and quick backstory is that I don't like the word hate, especially applied to me. And so my haters are, I call them my fan club, because honestly, it's like their fascination with me, it borders on just like love as far as I'm concerned. Because it's just like, you could not be leaning into me that much unless you really like have a crush on me or something. Which I understand, I'm the full package, I get it.
Totally.
But, so yeah, so my fan club are the folks who mostly, almost exclusively from afar, will talk about me and not to me. And it's mostly about, my being a gentrifier, which is the most bizarre thing because like my family's been in the neighborhood in which I work in and actually spend all of my money in. As a gentrifier, and it's mostly because like we do have a very specific approach to creating more economic diversity in our community, but through the people that are there. And I think because there's just been so much history about like what our communities are supposed to look like. So for a Black female from a community like mine to stand up and say that I'm a developer, is practically heresy, because that's not because that's capitalist and that's this, and I'm just like, you know what? This is my hood. Our hoods need money. Our hoods have been developed not with an intention that was not designed to support us. So you know what? People like me should be developers, and I'm highly encouraging other people to do so. Period. But again, to folks, and honestly, it's not just like the people in the social justice industrial complex who attack me. It's also like the progressives, white progressives in city government and outside of it, who are also kind of like, wait, we're here to help. Like, I'm not sure if you can do that. And I get that too. So they're also a part of my fan club.
And so you actually coined a term which was maybe not as successful as you were hoping, but you called it self-gentrification, which means, explain what that means.
Yeah, I didn't coin the term.
I'm sorry.
The term was coined, as far as I know,
You coined it for me.
Oh, that's okay. Actually, the former president of a historically Black college called Johnson C. Smith University, which is well known as an amazing engineering school down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And he, along with some really cool folks from the neighborhood and some financial institutions, got together, and they realized that here was a school, and then it was right next door to one of the poorest Black communities in Charlotte, and they decided to do some development there. And what was so interesting was that there were folks in the community who just saw development and were just like, oh, it's got to be like white people coming from outside the neighborhood doing this. And he was just like, look at who's doing this work. These are like your friends and neighbors. But again, because I think the way that white supremacy works, and it just assumes that people who do big things should not be people from our neighborhoods, they were just like, of course that can't be us. And it was like, no, we're building housing and local economic developments that support us, that are going to support people in this neighborhood. And if it's not gentrification, if anything, you want to call it self-gentrification, call it self-gentrification. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting, because it's like, we like nice things too in our neighborhoods. Why? I mean, it's just really, did we not want nice places to eat and work and shop before, that's not just what gentrifiers like. I'm sorry. It's just like, can we just acknowledge that? Thank you. And, but anyway, and so I started using that term, and the people who got it. They were just like, yeah, we like nice things too. And others were just like, you just used gentrification. And that's why I don't even use it anymore. It's just such a triggering thing that I think stops people before they even get started. So, and so we focus more on just the kind of development that make people feel proud to be in their neighborhood, to make them feel like they don't need to move out of their neighborhoods to live in a better one. And they define what that means, and then we just follow up.
Yeah. So, and Randal, tell me what kind of pushback have you gotten? Have you gotten pushback? Has there been, what would have been some of the difficulties?
Mainly in the beginning, I got pushback. I had quite a few realtors and some other people reach out and not want to support, because we did a lot of, marketing, engaging.
Yeah.
And they would say, well, what about taking ownership for white people? And I'm like, didn't y'all had that for like 400 years?
Hello.
400 years, what you mean?
I know.
We've been had that. That's mainly the pushback that I got, but for the most part, my organization, we mind our business. We work with the people that want to support us, and we put that money into the community that we want to support, and there's nothing wrong with being culturally specific. I encourage other people to be culturally specific with their efforts if that's what they want to do.
And how many people have you helped?
At this point, so we've helped about 160 Black homeowners and small business owners And we've raised close to $2 million now at this point.
That's awesome.
So we're gonna take we have time for one or two questions. Majora, but I wanted to ask you, I know you've done a lot of your work in the South Bronx. Can you tell me, tell us about maybe the coffee shop. What's a tangible example of something that you think you've...
Again, we work to build projects that give people a reason to want to stay in their community, and we want to be working on developing housing and other bit larger projects, but right now we've done two things, major things. One, we developed in the Boogie Down Grind Cafe, which is a hip hop thing, because for those of you who don't know, the hip hop born in the South Bronx. So you're welcome. So there you go. And so it's a cafe sort of dedicated to that, and we use it as this community gathering space, that's populated by people who do the programming, from open mics, credit repair workshops, poetry readings, book writings, book signings, et cetera. And the other one is like the coolest as well, which is, we call it Bronxlandia, and it's a former rail station that we've transformed into an event hall and an event venue, and it's absolutely gorgeous, and we're super excited, and we're raising financing to get the whole thing done, but it's even in its sort of current raw state. It's been used for some of the best music performances. Oh, DMC from Run DMC just shot a video there the other day. French Montana was up in there along with Lola Brooks. Tarana Burks did, when she dropped her second book, she launched it at Bronxlandia. I also did a book signing at my own thing too, so that was also great. And just, lots of music, TEDx's, parties, events, and it's just a place where people can where we have the ability to see and convene and show how fabulous we are with each other. And I think that is the way we build community. And yeah.
It's awesome. Jess is up there with the mic, if anybody has any questions. We probably have time for one or two.
Oh, my man.
Just so you know, that guy sitting next to you is a heck of an MC. So
Oh, yeah.
Oh, holla. Thank you.
When you started in Portland, did you have an idea of spreading this out somewhere? And what would you say to somebody that wanted to build on the idea that you started out with?
Yeah, I definitely did. I actually created like a 60-page playbook on how to start this. Yeah, and I tried to get something started in Asheville, North Carolina, and in Tacoma, Washington. It's just tough because the population is different, the support is different, and then Portland's really unique in the progressiveness. Yeah. So I definitely do want this to spread, and I know with how hard it is to maintain this organization in Portland, I just can't be the one running it.
Do you have a 60-page playbook?
I do have a playbook.
We'll link to it on the Citizens website if anybody wants to check it out.
Absolutely, yeah. It would be more like I'd have to email it to you. You don't have it on the website. So yeah, absolutely.
I didn't hear clarity about whether there was a tax-deductible component to gifting a home?
Hope so.
Yeah, there is. So I've been operating as an LLC with a fiscal sponsor. So my fiscal sponsor is a nonprofit that's been, so I've been able to act, and all my donations funnel through them, makes them tax deductible. And then as far as what we've been doing with the PDX Housing Solidarity Project, it's just been like a normal transaction. We just put the money in their pocket, and then they just put the down payment, and so everything's.
So, but the woman who gifted you the house was able to get a tax donation for the value of the, I guess, the donation part of it, the equity part.
She would have. She didn't want it. She's really that radical. She's like, she told me, she's like, I hate capitalism. I don't need it tax stuff. I want you to have this.
That's nice.
And so,
That's
yeah,
rad.
Wow.
really radical. So.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more.
To Professor Carter, I come from one of those communities where the message is you need to make it out. So as a young person, I'm wondering what ideas you have for actually communicating to more young people that they don't have to make it out. You talk about doing the capital investments, but how do we change the communication landscape there?
Honestly, the communication are the projects that we build. Like literally, like, excuse me, I'm sorry, I almost choked on my own spit. That was really unpleasant.
There's no choking allowed here.
But really, like the message, is what you're building in the community. And so building things like the cafe in Bronxlandia were literally the things that made people go like their heads flipped around. Because it wasn't, literally before we built those things, the largest gathering spaces in our neighborhood were the waiting rooms inside health clinics. Who cool wants to hang out on the inside of a clinic? Seriously, no, and that's why, but the best thing about what we've been doing is not just them looking and going, oh, wait, I want to go there, but it's just like, oh, wait, I want to stay here and I could build something here too. That's what makes me go, okay, I'm good. I am good. The mic, I can drop it because somebody else just picked it up and they're like rolling on it, and you should be one of them who picks it up because I want to see you on the stage. So there you go. But really, it's all about like creating people, giving people the feeling that they can actually do great stuff in their community because they can and they should. We've just been led to believe that our communities don't have what we need in order for us to succeed, but we are what we need. And we just have to like show it and put it out there. And that's what I did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
So we're done here.
Time's
So we're gonna. This is I think what they call in baseball the seventh inning stretch, even though it's like the second inning. But so we have a couple of minutes for a break to go get a drink, use the bathroom, stretch your legs, shake hands with the person next to you. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.